The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. Bringing you the real story. Why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Well, big news out of Auburn on Monday, the first official day of college basketball practices beginning, and Bruce Pearl said, "That is it for me. I am out the door," announces his retirement. We're going to talk all about this decision, the timing of said decision, who is taking over for Auburn, what it might mean for this roster, especially in the transfer portal era where these guys could potentially depart. We're going to get into all of that and Bruce Pearl's legacy for the Auburn Tigers and college basketball legacy at large. But Zach, we got to start with the fact that in some ways this news felt unexpected, but also this has been talked about for a while. There had been rumors and rumblings and conversations, and Bruce Pearl had talked about this earlier in the month, that he talked about considering a run for Senate and that he might retire because of that. That is not what is happening in this case. He is retiring. He is staying with the Auburn program as an ambassador in the short term, but it still felt like it caught a lot of people off guard, especially the timing here being so close to the start of the college basketball season.
So close to the season. Yeah. And I mean, what it looks like, right, is Bruce Pearl stepping away. So Auburn needs to hire his son to be his immediate successor. I mean, that's certainly what it looks like. Is that definitely what happened? I mean, that story hasn't been told yet. As we're recording this, Stephen will talk to the media at Auburn tomorrow morning for his introductory presser. I doubt we'll get that part of the story, but I'm sure it'll be asked. But yeah, I mean, definitely a surprise. And I think most Auburn basketball fans maybe weren't aware of this. He went on John Rothstein's show, 2 weeks ago, maybe. And Rothstein said, you got 4 years left on your contract. Do you think you'll do that? And Pearl's like, no way. No way. But I think a lot of people took that as oh, okay, he's not coaching for 4 more years, not 4 more weeks, and that's exactly obviously what happened. So we'll see how Auburn responds. It seems like they've got a plan in place with a new head coach. And I doubt there will be any sort of movement when you talk about the assistant coaches, which Bruce Pearl has been so complimentary of and kind of unique, right? With all the success that he and Auburn basketball have had, none of these guys have really left to take jobs anywhere else. It's kind of been the same core of guys, and hopefully that helps with this transition, Andy.
Yeah, I think you got to hope that that's the case here, obviously, because there's just not a lot of time to make any major changes. You mentioned Stephen Pearl. He's going to take over as the head coach. And I think one of the more kind of interesting notes about this is that not only is he taking over on what most would expect to be an interim basis. This is what we saw last year when Tony Bennett made his surprise decision to retire at Virginia. Now that was even closer to the season. That was 17 days before the start of the season. At least Bruce Pearl's a little more than a month out. But at the time, Ron Sanchez replaced Tony Bennett at Virginia, but it was kind of known to be on an interim basis. Stephen Pearl signed a 5-year deal. He is the head coach at Auburn going forward. That is the plan. Obviously, Stephen Pearl, he does not have head coaching experience. He has been at Auburn for a very long time. He played for his dad at Tennessee a while ago. He has been around the sport. He's been around a phenomenal coach and his father for a long time. But Auburn is now trusting their program, which has been built so successfully under Coach Pearl, to somebody who has not done this at the game's highest level before, and they're giving him a lengthy contract to do so. I know this is very fresh news for us, Zach, but what are your thoughts on that and kind of what that tells you about the timing of this decision for Pearl and also kind of what it means for the program going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides. I think the Auburn fan base is really, I guess there's 3 sides. The third is still kind of waiting to see how they actually feel about it. Cause like you said, it is fresh. It's kind of shocking to a lot of people, but I think there's 2 major trains of thought. The first one, and this is where I currently sit, Andy, is, well, Bruce Pearl built up arguably the worst program at the time in men's men SEC basketball, and built it into a power. 2 Final Fours in 6 years. I mean, they were the number 1 team for most of the year last year, and they were excellent. When they had Jabari and Walker, when they were the number 1 team then too, and then obviously 5 championships over the last 8 years. I think for the Auburn Tigers. Bruce Pearl doing that at Auburn, it's crazy. It's unheard of if we would have said that a decade ago. So I'm in the camp of Bruce built this. He deserves to do whatever he wants to do next. I think that falls on him. And if he wants to give it to his son, who has been a major, major part of this, that's fine. Yeah, do it. Do it.
But I think, yeah, go ahead.
But then the other side, and I'm sure that's what you were about to say, is the other side of it is, well, Auburn now is a top 10, top 15 job in college basketball. When you talk about the best home court advantage in college basketball over the last few years, and in the SEC for sure, and being competitive and what's become the best conference in college basketball, and the access to NIL and all these big boosters who want to see Auburn win at basketball, you've got access to so much. You're not a massive brand like Duke or Kentucky, but you're winning, Andy. You're winning at Auburn, and they want to continue to see Auburn basketball win. And so that would be attractive to most coaches. I think most coaches would take the Auburn job. And so, why not have a national search if this happens a few months ago? Those are both sides of the argument. I'm in the former rather than the latter, but I 100% understand both sides to this.
And I think too, Stephen has an opportunity because he's going to coach what is very likely going to be the same roster, or a roster with very, very minimal changes to it, in part because of the timing of this decision. But it gives him an opportunity to actually kind of show what he can do and show what he's capable of with a staff that's going to be very similar, with a roster that may end up being exactly the same. I think that puts him in a position to succeed right away and potentially make it so that Auburn their hand is not forced, and they have to start looking for a new coach a year or two from now if Coach Pearl is unable to do so. Reacting to the big news of the day in college basketball, that Bruce Pearl is stepping down as the head coach at Auburn after a tremendous college basketball coaching career, not just at Auburn. He had multiple other stops, has been one of the most prolific coaches in the sport for a really long time. But one of the big questions, Zach, that we've talked about with Bruce Pearl, that we talked about last year with Tony Bennett on this show, that we've talked about with a few other programs, is this kind of movement of coaches leaving their posts right before the start of the season. Obviously, in this case, there's about 42 days, I think, until the first games for the college basketball season begin. And there's a transfer portal window that opens up. It'll be open officially on Tuesday for 30 days. Any player on Auburn's roster will then be able to enter the transfer portal and go to a new school. But classes have already started. Most rosters are pretty well set, if not completely set, across the country. And so you don't really expect to see a lot of potential roster movement here. I will say, as somebody who follows Gonzaga very closely, that they did land a player from Virginia last year when Tony Bennett left. That player chose to redshirt for a full year. That's likely what would happen if anybody were departing Auburn at this point. But for Auburn, since they're keeping the rest of the staff together, assumingly, since Stephen Pearl has been around the program for a very long time, it doesn't feel to me like we're likely to see much, if any, roster changes happening for this program following this news.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like these guys don't know Stephen. In fact, I've had several Auburn basketball players over the last several years, and I asked them, like, hey, what was it like as soon as you entered the portal? The first coach that called them, I think the 3 that I've asked that question, they all said it was Stephen Pearl that called them first. So it's not like they're unfamiliar with this. Now, did they come here to play for Bruce Pearl? Yeah, probably. So, like, let's don't act like that's not a big deal. But I bet they also came for more than that. The staff, the facilities, the fan base, the NIL. Like, Auburn is set up and positioned to succeed in basketball. And does it take a slight hit? Yeah, let's don't act like it doesn't. But I don't think it changes all of the relationships. And look, it sounds like Bruce Pearl is still going to be around.
Mhm.
He and Auburn put together this like 16-minute video they posted on social media. Really, really well done. But towards the end of it, he talked about how, he's not running for office, which is what a
Mhm.
big talking point has been, and that Auburn has a job for him, some sort of ambassador or like maybe like a deputy AD. We don't fully know, but he did allude to that. And so he's going to be at all these athletic venues as much as he can cheering for Auburn is what he talked about. So that tells me he's going to be nearby. So if they did come for Bruce Pearl, they're still going to have Bruce Pearl
Mhm.
nearby. I'm not expecting a ton, but look, there are some of these guys that are on this roster that like I don't think are going to be part of the plan this year. And so, like you mentioned, if they did come for Pearl and they feel, disheartened by the news and all of that, like would it make sense for some of them to leave? Possibly,
Mhm.
possibly so. Um, but if you're going to redshirt, like, I don't know, redshirt here and then
Mhm.
see if it's a good fit or not. If you're kind of in a spot to move forward the next year, and then, you use that leverage at the end of the year when the portal opens. So I don't know if it makes a ton of sense, but I mean, statistically, like, is Auburn going to bat 1,000 here? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's the timing obviously is advantageous for Auburn in the sense that these players, if they are weighing whether they want to
Sure.
stay or whether they want to go, their options in terms of leaving are far less. You're not going to have potentially 300, 350 different programs looking at you. You're going to have a small handful of programs that have roster spots that are willing to bring you on. And even if you're planning to redshirt, I still don't think there's a lot of programs that are going to be champing at the bit to bring somebody in at this point and get them acclimated and get that all sorted out. It's not a good time. I mean, it's a great time if you're Auburn. It's not a good time if you're a player right now to try to be looking for a new school. And I think that's why this timing.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I want to bet in that moment. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Nick Saban called the Hurricanes the most complete team in America.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes.
A show favorite has returned. We have Melissa, a.k.a. Hoodie Girl, with us in the Hoodie Girl hoodie. And Melissa, I know you were partying. I'm sure you were with Ruben Bain eating gator meat after that victory last night. What were some of your takeaways in the stands there at Hard Rock Stadium?
My takeaways in the stands is that Miami fans do actually show up. All of these lies being told on Twitter that the stadium was half Florida fans. Not true. Florida fans did show up. I'm actually thoroughly impressed by the turnout that Florida did have, considering the kind of the woes that they're in right now with the coaching staff. But no, the stadium was popping last night. It was definitely a good time.
Yeah, and it was line of scrimmage domination on both sides. And as a result of that, and with Miami's 4-0 start, and I know it wasn't a great night for Miami's passing attack, but they made up for it in every other area. Rushed for 184 yards against a Florida defense that averaged about, I think, 84, 87 rushing yards allowed per game before yesterday. And you see this, Melissa, Miami moves up from number 4 to number 2 on the Associated Press poll, only behind the number 1 Ohio State Buckeyes. And I'm not even going to sit here and say like Miami should be number 1 or anything like that, because to me, Ohio State, defending champs, they are undefeated. They deserve to be in that number 1 spot, but I also think Miami deserves to be in that top 2, because when it comes to Miami's physicality, when it comes to the improvement of Miami's defense, who has smothered all 4 of their opponents so far, I believe, as Coach Nick Saban said, the Hurricanes are the most complete team in the country right now. And I don't want to get too big of a head over this right now. There's 8 games left in the regular season to play, but I think Miami at number 2 is exactly where they belong.
I'm shocked, honestly. I didn't see us moving up unless one of the teams that were ahead of us lost. It's just because we're in the ACC, we're not an SEC or a Big Ten school. I saw the coaches poll and saw we were in the same place, so I assumed we were gonna stay where we were. So I'm actually shocked. Do we deserve it? I think we've had one of the tougher non-conference schedules. People can say what they want about USF not being ranked anymore. They had two big games that they won as a group of 5 team. We knocked off Notre Dame to begin the season, and obviously the AP shows what they think of Notre Dame even with 2 losses because they still have them ranked. Say what you want about Florida, rivalry games hit different. Florida has an elite defense. You saw that last night. And I agree with Nick Saban. I think we do have one of the most complete teams in the country. And people will argue that, saying that Beck had an off game last night and our passing game was terrible. But that's what makes it a complete team, because even though Beck had an off night, we still won the game. Our defense was elite. And our running game showed out, and so did special teams. I mean, you look at what Carter Davis has done for us this season after this. I mean, we all came into this season worried like crazy about what our kicking game was going to be like after 5 years with the Borregales brothers. And Carter Davis hasn't missed a step. I mean, he nailed a 53-yarder in the rain last night. So at all 3 phases of the game, I thought we succeeded and played well in certain aspects in each part. Obviously, there's always stuff to improve on, but number 2, hey, listen, they're showing the Miami Hurricanes some respect, and now we just got to keep proving it every week.
Yeah, and I think based on the resume, I don't usually have very nice things to say about the AP voters. And, a couple weeks ago, we had that one who sort of outed herself when she had that bizarre explanation for why she, at the time, had Florida moving up and USF unranked right after USF upset Florida. So not all of the AP voters do their homework, but most of them do. And I think Miami moving up past Penn State. Penn State's played 3 junior colleges so far. Like, they haven't played anybody, the Nittany Lions. So the resume is not there compared to Miami's. I think Miami moves in front of LSU, at least partially because the Hurricanes looked better against the common opponent in Florida. Miami performed, I guess you could say LSU picked off DJ Lagway 5 times, but Miami actually performed better against Florida than LSU did.
Lagway didn't throw as much as he did against LSU.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think Napier was like, all right, we're gonna protect you a little bit, bud. But yeah, I think Miami deserved to move in front of LSU and for in front of Penn State for those reasons. Now, listen, Miami's got their bye week coming up, and Penn State plays Oregon this weekend, which is a huge game. If the Nittany Lions, and Melissa, if the Nittany Lions beat Oregon while Miami's off, I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State moves back in front of Miami. But at this moment, Miami deserves to be where they are.
Completely agree. Also, that whole AP voting fiasco, I woke up for work that afternoon and someone had tagged me in that. And so I was like half asleep, like looking at it, and I was like really confused as to why I was tagged in it. And they were just like, "Oh, you should do the AP voting instead of her." And I was like, "That's funny."
Well, you know what? Honestly, I had that thought earlier today, and I take like my own. I'm not an AP voter, just so you guys know. If I was, I would take it really seriously because I try to break this stuff down as professionally as I can. And I was watching this afternoon my guy Jason on Rock Boys Football, and he was breaking down the AP poll, and I'm thinking like he should have a vote. Like, compared to some of these people that don't take it seriously at all, the way he was breaking it down, he should have a vote. Let me run down the top 25, for the audio listeners who aren't looking at this beautiful chart, which, by the way, the chart is courtesy of On3. I pulled that one up for you guys, but it's Ohio State number 1, then Miami at number 2, Penn State, LSU, Georgia, rounding out the top 5, Oregon 6th, Oklahoma 7th. They move up. They move in front of Florida State because Oklahoma just got a big victory against Auburn. Florida State fell 1 spot. I see some of Hoodie Girl, let's pause on this one for a second because I see some Florida State fans like, we just set a team rushing record against Kent State and they drop us a spot. Now, listen, Florida State, I give them credit because they punched Alabama in the mouth week 1. They deserve, I think, to be in the top 10 because they have looked impressive so far. But don't complain about dropping a spot when you've played East Texas A&M and Kent State in consecutive weeks. Not to mention, well, actually not in consecutive weeks because they had a bye week in there.
And they
Florida
moved
State
too.
during their bye week moved up 3 spots. So
Yeah.
don't bitch and moan about dropping a spot now.
I agree. Listen, it's early in the season. Honestly, rankings at this point in September mean absolutely nothing. It's just ways to get TV viewership. Be like, oh, it's a ranked matchup. With the way the playoff system works now, rankings don't mean a thing until they come up with the college football playoff rankings. So yeah, this is great. It's a way for the NCAA to make more money because, oh, look, you're going to Happy Valley, top 10 matchup, 3 versus 6. Like, I mean, that's basically what it is. We play Florida State in 2 weeks. It's going to be a top 10 matchup, depending on what happens, because Georgia's playing Alabama, Penn State's playing Oregon next week. A lot of things could happen. It could easily be a top 5 matchup. So the rankings will take care of themselves. We just need to go 1-0 every week, and that's what Florida State should be worrying about. Instead of complaining about their rankings, they should be focused on Virginia next weekend. Yeah,
and I think Florida State should beat Virginia probably comfortably, but that's going to be a much better barometer than Kent State and East Texas A&M for the last couple of weeks. So Texas A&M 9th, Texas 10th. They bounce back against Sam Houston State. Indiana number 11. Indiana they curb stomped Illinois this past week, and that was a big win for them. Texas Tech number 12. They beat Utah. That was a big win. Ole Miss 13th, Iowa State 14th, Tennessee 15, Georgia Tech 16, Alabama 17, Vanderbilt 18. They've been the Cinderella of the SEC. Michigan 19, Mizzou 20, USC 21, Notre Dame 22, Illinois falls to 23, TCU 24, and BYU number 25. So that's your new AP top 25. When we come back, I want to get Melissa's take on some of what she saw against Florida last night, and if there are any lingering concerns about Miami's passing game, which was off. It wasn't terrible. In fact, Carson Beck went 3 for 3 on the important drive when Miami took the 19-7 lead, which really, was what put the game away.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Chris. Did you enjoy the day in Salt Lake?
More than you'll ever know.
I don't know. I've kind of got an idea looking at the smile on your face.
Yeah, more than you'll ever know. This was my hotel room key right here. I'm going to show you right here. This is and for those that are listening and can't see it, it's got the double T on it. It says 1-0 and it says why not us with a question mark on it. Usually after you leaving the trip, whatever you throw those away, I will keep this one because this one wasn't about that you won as much as it was how you won, and there's a variety of things that we will get into, not just today, but this week. But we all knew this was a big one. It's not as big as some want to make it out to be, but it absolutely was a big one, and it was a prove it type moment. You'd created a lot of buzz over the last 9 months, and a lot had been said, a lot had been written, and I think people were ready to see what's up. And I don't know if you've you've silenced any doubter. I don't know if you have every believer, but we've all been there, Cowan, and we've seen this program kind of like, have a hiccup and then build it all the way up. And then there's this game that shows up on your schedule and it's like, okay, here you go. And then you can't quite do it. And there'll be another time for that this season would be my guess. But this was, even though so early, this was just one with a lot of attention and different context than you've had for a fourth game of the season in many, many, many years. And you've now started out 4-0 since 2013. And you've kind of said hello to the United States of America in a positive way. People now know who you are, know your name. Your name's going to come out of a lot of people's mouths in the next week or so, and all for the right reasons. And I just want to – I wish you and everybody could have been there because it was just one of those days, man, where it was just absolute gold. But when it's over, and I have guys like Howard Sampson walking up to me, almost like apologetic for the penalties, and I've got to start faster. I'm like, dude, man. First of all, I'm looking up at him. I'm like, hey, man, congrats. Like Jacob Rodriguez just basically saying, this is what we've worked for, and they're not really nobody was really that celebratory in the terms of big picture. It was all just like, this is the start, and it was a very business-like approach from a lot of these guys, but they certainly enjoyed beating Utah. And I think Kyle Whittingham shockingly had to admit his team lost the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I think that those were his words. That's what he said after the game. I think he said something to the effect of, never in a million years did I think we'd lose the line of scrimmage, but we did. And they did. I mean, you owned it. Offensive line-wise, maybe not near as much. You had your problems. You had your false starts. You had your holding penalties and things like that. But guess what? You ran the ball when you wanted to. You ran the ball when you needed to. You ran it at the goal line. And Will Hammond, certainly we'll get into that. He factored into some of that as well. But I thought, whether it was Barron or Will, they had some time to sit back there and make some of these deeper throws down the field. And I just, but your defensive front seven, really, because the linebackers deserve all the credit too. But your front seven was exceptional. And I think Utah in that first round offensive line and the best offensive line that Kyle Whittingham has said he's had ever. I think you beat them on a Saturday morning in their own stadium, and I think he was shocked by that. But here we are, man, 4-0.
And if you see our faces, you'll see a look of not being shocked by that. Texas Tech, coming out of the gates defensively, living up to exactly what they thought they were, what we thought they were, I should say. I'm sure they did as well. But, I talked about going into the weekend that I felt like Tech would win the game if what they had been so far in the trenches was for real. And it was for real. And specifically, that was more so on the defensive side of things, Chris. And I think we clearly saw it play out offensively where you had your hands full. Utah was allowed to try, and they created some problems. So they had something to do with that. I'll give them some credit. Number 90 was a real problem. Be glad to have him in Lubbock. I don't know what his eligibility is, but he was a real problem. So credit him. But eventually you do exert your will offensively as well as you go, I think, for 130 on the ground in the second half. And it only got better as you got into the fourth quarter. I think you were near 5.5, 6 yards per carry in the final two quarters. And that's how a ground game evolves. I wish it was all roses all the time, but certainly we've seen that kind of be tough sledding early in a game, but you stick with it and you begin to break it open and it pays off late. And that's exactly what happened. And credit to Cameron Dickey for a huge touchdown run where he decided, I'll go ahead and finish the play. The rest of you seem to be done. You're tapping out on this one. I'm going to go ahead and finish the play, and I'll finish it in the end zone. So that's just so satisfying, Chris, when you know that you have broken another team's will, a fan base's will. They were hitting the exits. I don't know what USA Today has to say about the updated Big 12 Stadium decibel readings today, but I think those figures might have changed. Thanks for cramming that down our throats over and over on the broadcast. But so satisfying to go on the road and shut a lathered up crowd up. I said that last week, and that's what Tech eventually did. But I do want to stick specifically defensively, because what a sight for sore eyes. And I thought at halftime, as things were clearly still tight and you're feeling a little anxious about all the wasted opportunities, so many possessions starting at the 50-yard line, and you're not able to get points on the board. You know that's not a recipe for success. But at halftime, Chris, I felt like you're winning the battle at the line of scrimmage defensively. Zero doubt. It's a little more give and take offensively, but zero doubt that defensively you were winning that battle. And I'm just telling myself, well, this bodes well for the final 2 quarters. Whatever it's going to look like, I don't know, but it bodes well that you have been handling your business. And what a combination. We saw the law firm in action again. Hunter, Holmes, Gil Howard. And I talked about it on the postgame show yesterday, Chris. It's just so fun to look at that trio, or even the duo of Gil Howard and Hunter, because they're so different from a measurable standpoint. But I couldn't ask for anything better than what those guys have been giving you up front. And yeah, you can extend that to the 7 as well, because the stat line for guys like Roberts or Rodriguez just through a quarter and a half or so, I'm thinking this is a full day for a lot of guys.
Yeah, and you know, I thought your 2 safeties were exceptional in this game. Brendan Jordan, Cole Wisniewski. They had as much to do with Devin Dampier not getting loose on any kind of crazy runs or anything like that as anybody, and they got the run game like really stopped. That's a team that was rushing for 290 yards a game, and they just really had no answers for you. And it just was, you know, collective effort. Your coordinator has been in these kinds of games before against these kinds of attacks.